Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Holistic Pharmacy podcast. I have with me today a very special guest. He is Yug Varma, PhD, and he's the co-founder and CTO of Phyla, the world's most advanced acne probiotic system. So I can't wait to dive in and ask him all about that. But before we get started, as I ask all my guests, I'd love to hear a little bit about your childhood and what kind of put you on this trajectory to study all these different things that eventually led you into probiotics and acne.
Hey Marina, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be on. Yeah, thanks for the introduction. I'm Yog and I'm a scientist. My background is microbiology, biochemistry, a little organic chemistry back when I was doing my bachelor's. Being a scientist, I have been fascinated with our technology, phage technology, for oh gosh, almost 19 years now. So I've been following the industry. I've been following the science since a long time. And when I was doing my postdoc at UCSF, um, I was sort of searching for ways to use this technology, deploy this technology, work with it to solve, some major problems. And what I kind of I was looking at a number of different conditions, including skin conditions, and I learned more about acne, right, as a disease, as kind of a, biopharma market and all that. And it was pretty stunning to me what I didn't know, because obviously acne is all around us, right? 85% of us have it at some point in our life. It's almost a universal human kind of experience. And 85% of people suffer from it now, right? It's almost a ritual or a rite of passage in when you're a teenager. So a couple of things, right? The first is that um, adult acne has been rising and rising in the last few decades. We don't know exactly why, but we do know that about half of women in their 20s and about a third of women in their 30s struggle with adult acne, hormonal acne, cyclical acne. And the number is similar but slightly lower for men. So, adult acne is now more prevalent in our society. And when you have acne, the solutions that are in front of you are, in the words of a derm that I heard at a conference, they were like, we're using at best 1980s technology to solve acne. Because the best, solution for acne out there, which is Accutane, which is very harsh, but, does work for a lot of people, was discovered in 1982. Uh, it's really something where innovation has lagged behind, but the need is still extremely high. People are still getting acne at the same very high rate. They're looking around for solutions, and especially for parents, they are really disappointed to find out that the same kind of harsh, damaging products that they took for acne when they were teenagers are the ones that they're having to pass on to their kids, and they're not okay with that. And so, for me and for my team, it was a real kind of sort of motivating factor to bring the latest insights from microbiome research into acne, to build a product around, a technology that doesn't damage your skin, that is very targeted, that only goes after the bad bacteria without hurting the good bacteria and hurting your skin.
Yeah, a couple of episodes back, we had the founder, actually co-founder for VTract, which is a microbiome testing company. So all of this is very, very relevant. And as many people know, microbiome is like this new hot topic. But of course, it's not new. It's been around. It's just that we're discovering things. And more, we're tying all different disease states and imbalances to the health of our microbiome. So I'd love to hear from that perspective, how does that affect whether or not we have acne or any other skin condition? And then I have a bunch of other questions to ask you, but let's start with that.
Sorry, can you just repeat the question? You cut
Yes.
out.
So the question is like from the perspective of the microbiome, what really causes acne, or maybe any other factors you want to speak on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's such a great place to start because, you have to kind of define and understand the problem before you start throwing out solutions, right? I'll just throw out a few observations that I'm sure everyone hearing this will nod along to because it's just pretty well-known facts, right? So the first thing is like babies don't get acne, right? You don't have 5-year-olds with acne, and it starts at puberty. And the other thing is that acne doesn't affect any other part of your body other than your face, your upper chest, and your back, right? And there's a very good reason for that. And the reason lies in the microbiome. So at puberty, the kind of hormonal flush that you have coursing through your body leads to a radical remodeling of your skin. What that means is your pores get deeper, the sebaceous glands, which are these oil producing glands, activate and start producing a lot of sebum. And these conditions are ideal for the growth and colonization of one bacterium called Cutibacterium acnes or C. acnes, right? Now, C. acnes is not a major part of your skin microbiome before puberty. And that's why at puberty, you start getting acne. And even after into adulthood, C. acnes plays a big role on our face, on our upper chest, and our back. But it's really not a big part of your microbiome in other parts of your body. And it's not on your hands and feet. It's not on your torso. You'll never get acne on your knee, right? And so the correlation of the bacteria and where it lives and what it likes to eat is very, tightly correlated to the places where you get it and when you start to get acne. Now, every adult, every really post-puberty person listening to this podcast has a large amount of C. acnes on their face. You have it, I have it, we all have it. Of course, all of us don't have raging acne. And what's really important to understand is this kind of notion of balance, right? So if we sequenced your skin microbiome and mine, they would be different, right? But we are both healthy, right, in our own way. So your microbiome is in balance, my microbiome is in its own balance. When we get a chronic bacterial disease like acne, in eczema is very similar. One bacteria overgrows, causes an imbalance, and your skin detects that imbalance. There are a lot of immune cells under your skin, and they start throwing out inflammation to try and rectify that imbalance. And that's what acne is, right? And so if you understand that when you're healthy, your microbiome is in balance, and when you have acne, this one bacteria is overgrowing, if anyone was asked what's the solution? The solution is if I could snap my fingers and reduce the amount of that one bacteria that's overgrowing, bring everything back into balance. That's all I need to do, right? Because yes, of course, there's a big hormonal component, but again, the hormones drive production of sebum, which is the oil, and the oil is just like the best preferred food for C. acnes. And so that's the kind of cycle that's going on. And so, I mean, this is research that a number of labs have done and uncovered, and it goes a bit deeper. So, for example, there are some good strains and bad strains of C. acnes. So, people who have a lot of acne, the bad strains are like 99% associated with acne skin, but they're not found on healthy skin, right? So, we know to that very precise level what is going on, who's responsible for the inflammation, and how that cycle is getting kicked off.
Yeah, I love how granular we're getting here in this topic. So it sounds like it's more of like an opportunistic pathogen and it feeds on the oil production from the glands that are concentrated around your face, the
Mhm.
the chest, upper chest, and the upper back area. And that's where we are prone to get that inflammation and the response of our own immunity trying to kind of normalize things, but then it gets out of control.
Exactly.
Got it. So there's been a lot of approaches, and you mentioned, vitamin A derivatives like, Accutane,
Noise.
and there's so many other things. There's antibiotics, in the conventional therapy from topical to oral to salicylic acid to different kinds of washes that dry out your pores, right? Like take the oil away. So in your experience and research, what is kind of like the top-down approach, right? Like you mentioned, yes, hormones are part of it, but they're not the real cause. So what would be like that root cause, and why don't these other conventional therapies, either have the efficacy that we want or the safety that we want?
Yeah, I mean, again, I like how we're kind of just drilling into the causes because that's so important. Because if, once you get to the source, the prime source of what's causing acne, that's really important. Um, so the fact that bacterial overgrowth is a big part of acne is reflected in the fact that every single anti-acne product is broadly antibacterial, right? I would say maybe spironolactone and some of the hormonal like birth control are not. But you think about benzoyl peroxide, you think about all the antibiotics. And by the way, dermatologists are the number one specialty that prescribe the most antibiotics, period. And most people don't know that. And it's surprising, right? They're like, oh, dermatologists are the ones prescribing the vast majority of antibiotics. But it's true. And they don't like it for the most part. They're like, we know antibiotics barely work because it was either in the 90s or the early 2000s. They did kind of a large survey of the C. acnes on the skin, and they discovered that an alarmingly high percentage of C. acnes on the skin is currently resistant to the antibiotics we use to treat acne. And even retinoids have an antibacterial effect, right? So we know that all of these anti-acne medications, which by the way do work, right? They're FDA approved, they do work, that they're all going after bacterial overgrowth. But unfortunately, all of them cannot specifically kill the bad bacteria and leave the good bacteria alone. They kill everything, right? So this indiscriminate killing, what it does is it leads to the thinning out of your microbiome. Now, I think of the microbiome as this rainforest in our body, right? You have a rainforest on your skin. You don't know it. That's okay because the rainforest is invisible. Its trees are made up of microbes, viruses, bacteria, fungi. But together, just like a rainforest, right? A healthy rainforest is varied, it's resilient, right? And so it's important to maintain that diversity of your microbiome so that it can be a protective layer on your skin. When you use these harsh products like benzoyl peroxide, antibiotics, etc., they're killing indiscriminately and they're thinning out this protective layer. And that's one of the major reasons why relapses are an unfortunate but very frequent occurrence in acne patients. They'll start trying something and they'll try this, they'll try that. It'll work for a while, right? It's a bit harsh, but you can tolerate it because you want to see results. After 3 months or so, you're back to square one. It stops working. You're super frustrated. You're back to square one. And that's because it's damaging your microbiome so that, of course, you can't put benzoyl peroxide on your face every day for the rest of your life. It's really harsh. So when you stop using it, you've decimated your microbiome, the bad bacteria grow back, and now you have no defenses. And so that is one of the main reasons why, although all of these things work, A, they're super harsh on your skin, and B, they cause a lot of relapses.
Yeah, I agree. When you said they work and they're approved, I'm like, yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of side effects, and then there's tolerance issues, and then there's the continuity of therapy. And once you drop off, either everything starts all over again, but then you don't want to be on for a long time because then it also causes other kinds of disruptions. So I think we're getting to a really interesting topic here. And really, I think it would be interesting to explore what really differentiates, right? You said I have maybe my own microbiome and my own balance on my skin. You have your own, and both of us present as healthy. So what is it that makes some people break out, even though they're experiencing puberty or they're experiencing like a jump in hormones, whether it's in pregnancy or other types of situations? And some of them maintain their skin health, and then other ones erupt and have horrible cystic acne and all of these kinds of things.
Yeah, that's a great question. So to answer that, I think the best insight we have got yet is a 2016 study where they looked at healthy microbiomes and acne microbiomes, right? And they did really, really deep sequencing to try and figure out what's the difference between the two. Is there a systematic difference that we can pull out? And the only difference and the biggest difference they found was that um, healthy skin has an abundance of phages that kill and eat C. acnes, the bacteria that causes acne. However, on acne skin, it's very rare to find it. Now, what are phages? Phages are tiny microorganisms. They're actually viruses that eat bacteria. They're very specific. They not only just eat bacteria and nothing else, but they are very specific for the kind of bacteria that they can eat, right? So an E. coli phage will only eat E. coli, it cannot eat any other kind of bacteria. And this is the kind of specificity that we love because we're like, we know what's causing the problem. If we can just zap it, right, using phages, that's really important. Now, phages are really incredible because they're the most numerous life form on the planet. They outnumber bacteria by, we think, 10 to 1. It's probably more. And they're everywhere. They're in seawater, they're in soil, there's billions of phages inside of us. And as as I said in the study, these phages are already on our healthy skin. So it leads to this important observation, which is, 85% of us get acne, but 15% of us don't, right? And we all know, we all have annoying friends who, never wash their face, but just are like, oh yeah, I never got acne. I don't know, it just kind of passed me by. And we're envious of that. And we wish we had that good luck, good skin, whatever. Well, chances are that the reason behind their, perplexingly good skin is that they have phages on their skin, which is naturally balancing their microbiome, preventing the overgrowth of C. acnes and resulting in long-term skin health. And so we said, hey, why do we don't want to gatekeep this, right? We want to democratize this amazing organism, put it in a bottle, make it available for everyone, so that everyone can have the benefit of a balanced microbiome and a healthy microbiome.
Amazing. And I think I'm hearing this pretty much for the first time. So this must be brand new technology because I'm in this field and I research all kinds of stuff. So tell us a little bit more about your solution and your approach, and really how do some people get the phages and other people don't? Is it a matter of genetics? Is it a matter of lifestyle or other stressors that they're keeping at bay? And then also, how could you just bottle that up and give that to people?
Yeah, so like I said, the phages, the microorganisms are really the key here. And so we spent years researching this. I mean, so I told you I'm a scientist and my company is really a biotech company, right? And so we're trying to bring biotechnology into consumer health, into skin health, and put biotechnology in a bottle. So, as opposed to all the other, products out there for acne that really engage with a very limited subset of active ingredients, right? You've got your benzoyl peroxides, you go to the doctor, they'll give you antibiotics and retinoids. We're trying to break that cycle and say, hey, you don't have to just rinse and repeat and try, the same thing in a different bottle for years and years. So we started off with an NIH grant. And so this was funded by the NIH and supported by UCSF. We spent years researching this. And for example, we spent a couple of years in formulation just trying to stabilize this and working with different ingredients, because phages are a living thing and it's very difficult to stabilize a living thing in a topical formulation. So having found success with that, we've launched this product. And again, like the way it works is it kills the bad bacteria without hurting the good bacteria. Another way I like to think about it is if you went out into your garden one day, right, and you saw a weed and you're like, I don't want that weed growing. What do? You could take a can of gasoline, pour it all over your garden, set it on fire, and you're like, oh, well, I've destroyed my garden, but that weed won't be growing again. That's insane, right? Who would do that? But that's what we're doing. We're setting fire to our microbiome every day, trying to get rid of that one overgrowing microorganism. Instead, what you would do is you look down at it, you scoop up that weed, you throw it out, you replace it with a patch of grass or dirt or a plant, and you're done. That's exactly what our technology does. It kills just that weed, it scoops it out, removes it without hurting your microbiome. And the result that we're seeing is not only that, because this is a natural organism that we're kind of transplanting on people, we're not seeing side effects. We're seeing a long-term skin health where it's balancing out your microbiome and increasing diversity. And it really is a brand new way to tackle diseases like acne, which, were tools we didn't have before. So, you had asked what is kind of what, like, why do some people have phages, some people don't? we don't fully know, but to the best of our knowledge, it's almost serendipitous. It's just like happenstance. And so, you can say, hey, acne kind of runs in my family. My mom had bad acne. My dad had bad acne. I'm pretty sure I'm going to get bad acne too. Well, the chances are neither of your parents have phages on their skin. And so you growing up in that household, you're rubbing your skin against your family members. There isn't going to be a phage that jumps onto your skin. And conversely, there are some people who are like, oh, I have amazing skin. My husband has amazing skin, and our kids have amazing skin. They probably have phages and they're transmitting it in that way. And the reason why we think that is in that 2016 study, they had a group of people with healthy skin that were older. So they were 55 years and over. And they found that the prevalence of phages was highest in that cohort. It was even higher than the young people with healthy skin. And so that supports this argument that, as we go through life, we have relationships, we're rubbing our skin up against this person and that person. Each of those moments is an encounter where a phage might jump over onto your skin. And this is another observation that as we get older, acne just kind of fades, and we actually don't know why. We don't know why it happens. I mean, hormones do play a part where hormones kind of equalize, but the chance that a phage will kind of jump onto your skin is also increased as you go through life. So it's fascinating how I feel like the solution to acne was literally right under our noses. It's in our skin. And it's just that we have to kind of spread it evenly and democratize it.
Wow, it's so fascinating. So where do you even scoop those phages from? Other healthy skins, like as the same concept of the fecal transplant and how we make the
Mhm.
microbiome healthy in other ways?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when we started our research, we were taking they're called sebaceous casts, but it's essentially a pore strip, right? You take a pore strip, and those little spiky things that are on a pore strip, we use to harvest them and do phage. That's where we find the phages. And we found as well that healthy people were you were much more likely to find a phage. And so once we've isolated it, we've characterized it, we are now able to kind of ferment it and grow it up into large quantities in batches and then purify it and then put it in our products.
Okay. I'm going to ask maybe a complex question. Maybe you'll find it easy, but there's a debate like whether a virus is a living organism or not, because it's pretty inert unless it infects another host cell. So
Mhm.
how would you characterize a phage?
I think that debate is a bit moot because it's life, right? So you can't draw clean lines. I mean, whether it's defining a species, right, of bacteria, like what's a different species and what's just like an exotic kind of far-flung cousin of a strain of whatever that bacteria is. It's hard for us to often draw lines. And so you could say, and by the way, the line that we draw when we say phages are not living, we say, oh, it can't replicate by itself, right? But then there are a lot of symbiotic bacteria that can't live without a specific set of conditions, or some of them are intracellular. So they're like, oh, they can't really live outside of another cell. So they are, of course, dependent on nutrients. A lot of these symbiotic bacteria have very small genomes and lack their own ability to make synthesize basic biomolecules like vitamins and stuff. So there's that relationship, right? And so you could say, for example, nitrogen fixing bacteria aren't living things. But of course, no one would accept that. Everyone would say, of course, they're bacteria, they live. But you're like, yeah, but they can't live outside root nodules in the ground. And so for me, it's like, yes, viruses do depend on other cellular systems, but the cool thing about viruses is that they're literally biological software. And we know this from, if you think about a computer virus, right? You're like, oh, it's a piece of software that runs on hardware. And if it gets into a certain hardware, it infects it and it takes over and it makes more copies of itself and tries to disseminate, right? I mean, so a computer virus notion is actually taken from biological viruses because that's what they do. And so a biological virus is essentially software that runs on a particular kind of hardware, right? So COVID-19 runs on our cells. And phages, which are much, much more constructive, as you know, bacteria are kind of our enemies and they're the enemies of our enemy. But there are software that run on a very specific kind of hardware. And they've shown this in amazing ways. So you can take just the DNA of the phage. You can remove all you know, the capsule and the capsid around it and just take the DNA and inject that into the cell that it is its host. And the virus will essentially boot up. It'll make more copies of itself. It'll make all the structural proteins that it needs to, and it will exit as a fully formed phage, and you know, it's capable of infecting other bacteria. So I find it really fascinating. You know, we're at a stage now with genetics and genetic engineering where you can really treat it as kind of a digital organism and say, oh, if we have this code, this DNA code, this code will run on a certain kind of hardware.
Wow, yeah, that's really interesting because there are some parasitic plants too, like Hostea and others. And it really does become kind of a philosophic question because we as a living thing, we need to feed on other things. And then we need water and sunlight and all these resources in order for us to continue living. So I think the diversity and the symbiosis that you mentioned before is the key to a healthy microbiome, which is also the key to health. So I love what you're doing, and I'd love to hear the results as far as like how long does it take for this product to work? How often or what's kind of the length of time that somebody needs to be treated, and how long lasting are the results?
Yeah, and to answer that question, we did a clinical trial a few years ago to really understand better this, you know, brand new technology. It's a frontier technology. It's a new modality. And what we found was for most patients or for most subjects, their acne got better with this after about 60 days. So after about 2 months, right? And for many people, we actually saw results really quickly within the first week or the first couple of weeks. But again, acne is a chronic condition, right? As you know, you get acne over the course of months and years. And it's really important to keep your microbiome, firstly, bring it back into balance and then keep it in that balanced state. And so what we found is that for many people with acne, and this is again a lot through our customers' own testimonials, is that for a lot of people initially when they apply the phage product, you expect it, oh, it's a living organism. It's just going to live on my skin forever now, as long as it has food in the right conditions. But people with acne, for some reason, the phages keep falling off their skin. And that's why for us to see the maximal benefit, you have to be sort of diligent with applying the product, right? Compliance is key. You have to apply it twice a day, every day. And then give your microbiome a little time because microbiomes are really difficult to change, especially the skin microbiome. And so you have to like keep applying it, give it a chance to engraft and become part of the community and start to work. And then more importantly, when your microbiome starts to change, your skin's immune system is detecting that. And sometimes it will kind of get freaked out. And you might see a little bit of a purge, which again, no matter what acne medication you're on, you will almost always see a purge at some point. So it takes a while for your body's immune system, your skin's immune system to equilibrate and understand, oh, the microbiome is not throwing off an inflammatory signal anymore. I should stop producing inflammation. And so all of that happens within the first couple of months. And, you know, everyone's acne is different. Everyone's skin history is different. So some people may see results in week 9 or 10 versus week 8. That's perfectly normal. And so I mean, we're invested in our customers' long-term skin health, right? We fully acknowledge that our product is not, if you need your acne gone in 2 days, our product probably won't work for you. But if you're sick and tired of acne, if you've had it for many years, if you want it gone and you want to keep it off, then our product, you know, approach, our technology is for you.
Yeah, I love it. It's almost like exploring the frontiers in the microbiome and how we first discovered leaky gut is like the root cause of a lot of things. And then now we know leaky brain is a thing. And now this sounds kind of like leaky skin might be the next frontier here. So I love what your company is doing, and I would also love to add a more like holistic spin on this and ask you about your opinion about, well, how can somebody support these phages in actually sticking around and becoming a like a frequent visitor and even like a resident of the natural skin biome, right? So is there anything lifestyle wise or other recommendations that would help somebody regulate their hormones and detoxify their body and deal with their stress and really heal the skin also from the inside out?
Yeah, so the first thing is, if you don't have the phage, you have to put it on your skin, right? And that's obviously step number one. The second step, if there is a second, discrete step, is that it's, I think, really important to not overburden your skin with too many products. And this is an ethos that we have, right? We have a kind of a minimalist product. We try to formulate with as few ingredients as possible. And we don't sell a huge range of products. We only sell three products because we think that's where you'll get the maximal benefit. And we're not interested in peddling like lotions and potions for profit. Um, I would say that, so there was a study done a few years ago that basically it was a survey, and they discovered that the average woman puts on 500 skincare ingredients on her skin every day, right? That's a lot. And if you think about the burden your skin is under, it's buried under those layers. A lot of these things are Vivon ingredients, and they're on your skin all day, every day until you hopefully, you wash your face at night and take it off. I'm going to venture and say that not all of those 500 ingredients aren't essential for your skin, right? And so what we say is, hey, try to minimize the products you use. And often that in itself, either it won't fix your acne per se, but it will help greatly, right? And of course, there are things like, if you want to wear makeup and stuff, you've got to do that, like for your work or for, your self-esteem. That's totally fine. But it's like, oh, what else are you using? Can we kind of cut that a little bit? And so I think that is something that will help the phages engraft. Again, this is a frontier technology. I mean, we know a lot more than we did, but we're still at, less than 1% of the knowledge that we need to fully understand the system. And maybe we never will, but that's okay because it's really important to understand the most critical parts of the microbiome, the ones that really move the needle and push on that. And that I think is like phage technology is a really big part of that.
Yeah, that's really, really fascinating with the numbers. And it just blows my mind that people will just trust that the market has great stuff in store for them. And even the pharmaceutical industry and the doctors and the dermatologists, right, have like the best things. But unfortunately, we have to do our own research. We have to realize that not everything that's approved is actually the best thing, and not everything convenient is also the best thing. So, like you mentioned, a fast solution could be an antibiotic or a retinoid, but it might come with long-lasting side effects also. So, we really have to weigh the pros and cons of every decision that we make. And so, I would love for you to speak on, what do you think are the bare essentials of a skincare routine when it comes to like, should somebody use soap? Or if somebody is using a retinoid, let's say orally, we know there's a lot of risk of terrible side effects. And if you get pregnant, it's teratogenic. So I strongly suggest and recommend that people really weigh that decision for them. But topicals, right? They're prescribed all the time for anti-aging and all this stuff. So what do you think is like essential and what maybe has some hidden dangers and costs to using it?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the most of the products for anti-acne and the approaches to anti-acne products that are recommended are really harsh, right? And that's because, again, they're using 1980s or older technology, and that's for a long time, that's what was being served up to people, right? Now you have an option that is based on kind of biotech insights, more the kind of updated scientific understanding about the microbiome and its role in acne and how acne actually works. And so everyone obviously has a choice to make. And we have a lot of customers who are like, I've struggled with acne for many years. I've tried everything under the sun, right? I've run through all the skincare brands out there. I've been to the doctor. I've been on even a couple of rounds of Accutane, right? And then they try Phyla, and it finally kind of works for them. And it's like you've taken this long, arduous journey full of disappointments to try and get rid of your acne, and you finally find something. It's a lot of relief. It's a lot of like gratitude. And honestly, that to us as a company, we are so grateful to that when people share that. It really floats our boat. Um, I would say that the one thing that a lot of people think will get rid of their acne is drying out their skin, and they're kind of right, right? Because as we discussed, the oil that our skin naturally produces is food for this bacteria. But the oil is produced for a reason. And the reason is that the sebum, the oil that we produce, it hydrates our skin layers, it keeps the moisture in, it prevents things like fine lines and wrinkles. And so if we chronically dry out our skin, we're going to see the results of that down the road, right? 5, 10 years from now, we're going to be looking like way worse than other people our age. And at that point, the damage is done. So I would say moisturize, don't dry out your skin, have less products if you can, right, on your skin. And those are just, yeah, some of the things that, we recommend and we kind of live through our life.
Yeah, and I asked my dermatologist this question about topical retinoids in particular, because there's this theory that it helps with the cell turnover, and that's why you get new cells, and that's why you get rid of fine wrinkles and lines, and makes your skin appear more youthful. So, people out, above age 25 or 30, basically they
Mhm.
will use this every single night on their forehead or any other fine lines. So, what is there any problem or downside to this in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, so retinoids do that, but they also will shrink and kill your sebaceous glands, right? And so we just talked about how it's important to not dry out your skin. Retinoids will cause chronic dryness often for the rest of your life, right? And this is a very common side effect, right? A lot of people who have been on Accutane, whether or not it affects their acne, it will definitely affect their skin in that way. And so while you're on it, it's obviously really, really important to just put tons and tons of moisturizer because your skin just like eats it up. But even after you're off retinoids, it stays with you for a long time, probably for the rest of your life. And so that's just like that's a chronic side effect you have to deal with. And as a result, it's like with retinoids, you kind of get on a treadmill, right? And it's almost like you can't get off because the moment you stop using it, that cell turnover is going to stop. And then you're like, oh, okay, I'm seeing the negative effects of that. There's another lesser understood, but probably equally concerning factor there, which is that when the retinoids promote skin cell turnover, what they're doing is they're stimulating your stem cells that are at the base of your skin, right? They're at the base of the dermis. Um, and those stem cells are known as immortal cells, right? They're kind of they can keep making more and more cells and they won't get exhausted. But even those immortal cells have a certain limit. There's only certain amounts of cell turnovers that they can do before they stop. And what you're doing when you're using retinoids is you're kind of speeding up the clock, right? And so the benefit of that is you always have these new skin layers that look, amazing and fresh, but you're kind of exhausting the stem cells prematurely. And the thing is that the over the length of your life, it happens so subtly that it's impossible. I'm not aware of any studies that have been done for that period of time. And even then, it will be really hard to pinpoint that, oh, it was the retinols, not any other of the, let's say, 500 ingredients that we use on our skin. But I have read and heard, dermatologists raise that concern and say, hey, we don't know what happens when you accelerate, stem cell turnover to that point, and then maybe they get exhausted in, I don't know, 5, 10, 20 years. And then there's probably, some negative price to pay for that.
Yeah, that's exactly the conclusion that I came to. And I think it's really important that again we know and understand the risks. And a lot of times it's just kind of like not disclosed or discussed. I know myself as a pharmacist, there's not enough time sometimes to counsel people. And then when somebody prescribes you something, you just again trust. So I highly recommend everybody check out the Environmental Working Group. They check out the safety and how green and clean ingredients are for skin and for household and for really anything. And just to remind everybody, the functional medicine 5R principles of how to kind of get over any chronic imbalance and get to the root causes of the issue. So to summarize, it's basically removing the burden. So that's why we want to choose clean ingredients. Then you want to reintroduce something that will heal any gut lining issues or any other leakiness in any area of the body and really heal the inflammatory processes. And then meanwhile, you're also making sure you're detoxing and eliminating toxins on a regular basis as well. So there's a lot of pillars to keep in mind, but this topic really hit close to home for me because I personally suffered from adult onset acne for several years. And it was really challenging because your skin is really how you present to the world. And it really put a dent in my confidence and my ability to show up in the world at a time where I feel like I wanted to show up in the world more. So it was really, really challenging. And I wish I knew more about these kind of safe products and alternatives. Um, Now I was very like into natural health already, so I tried all kinds of stuff, and I have to say not everything worked, and a lot of things were including dietary measures that I was using actually were worse for me. So it's really, really important to get that individualized counseling and approach. But all the tips that we shared today are pretty much universal. So you can start there. Assess your stress level. You can reduce that burden as far as like toxins and applications and help yourself detoxify better. Because another thing is that once your kidneys and your liver and your lymph and all of your detoxification channels become burdened, that's when also the skin comes in and takes the grunt of it because there's some channels and toxins that get eliminated through our skin as well. And when they're coming out of the pores, it can also cause inflammation and all kinds of imbalances and affect your sebum and everything that we've been talking about. So I learned it the hard way. And I have to say, my parents didn't suffer from acne and I had very clean skin as a teenager. But then all of a sudden, as a young adult, I had all these challenges. So I think it's really fascinating to just kind of see where the phages maybe fit into all of this. But I seem to successfully have reintegrated them into my skin because I no longer have those issues. So after I did heal from all of that, it seems that my microbiome is now balanced again. So that is really, really good news. And the last thing I want to ask you while I have you on is, I've noticed and I've heard other people talk about this, and I just mentioned it, right? Like my parents didn't have acne. I didn't have acne until a certain point of time. So what is it that is changing in our modern lifestyle that is making 85% of us suffer with this? Where if you look at ancient times, right, a lot of the times you don't see any evidence of anybody suffering from acne, even like 5 decades ago.
Yeah. And it's really it's cool that you kind of bring that up because acne's prevalence is about 85% throughout the world. So whether you're in the Americas or Asia or Africa or Europe, every kind of community, every group of people will have acne at that very high level, except for a few societies, hunter-gatherer societies, tribal societies that we know of. For example, there are certain hunter-gatherer tribes in Africa. There's the Yanomami tribe that is kind of been very well studied from a microbiome perspective in the Amazon basin. And the Yanomami people, particularly for how in depth they've been studied, they have zero incidence of acne. Then kids don't get it, teenagers don't have it, adults don't know of it. And the difference between their skin and ours is their skin microbiome diversity is incredibly high. It's off the charts compared to ours. And this is something that we've kind of slowly lost as we've lived in industrial societies. We live in these houses of metal and steel and concrete, and we probably don't go out and interface with nature as much as we should. And this is kind of part of the hygiene hypothesis, right? That if you're as a baby, as an infant, you don't get the right immunological triggers, which is basically play in the dirt, play in the sand, I don't know, play with a dog. um, it's really, really important to be in touch with all of those factors, immunological factors, because they will set the thermostat of your immune system and prevent it from being oversensitive or going haywire. And if you don't do that, then we get a lot of what we see in the industrialized world, which is more allergies, more asthma, more sensitivities, IBD, IBS, leaky gut, all of those things are because of an imbalance in our immune system, which is driven by an imbalance in our microbiome. So, I mean, I studied as a postdoc in UCSF for 6 years. I studied, you know, the role that gut bacteria play and the specific molecules that they use as almost a form of language to communicate with their host, us, and our body and our cells, and do some crosstalk, do a little trading, either live in peace or go to war with our body. And that was fascinating to me because, these bacteria are basically using molecules as a kind of language and as a kind of communication system to plug into our bodily processes. So we know a lot about it, much more than we knew maybe 15 years ago, but there's still so much to learn. And that's what really excites me and motivates me because I'm like, oh, I have all these questions. And we're trying to answer some of those through our research, but using frontier technologies like phages, I'm glad to provide this new option that people never had before to tackle problems like acne that are so prevalent, that are such a big burden, and that a lot of parents come up to us and say, "Hey, man, I could have used this when I was a kid, but I'm glad that it's there for my kid."
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dr. Young, thank you so much for this fascinating conversation. We went way over time, but if you have just one more minute, I'd love to do a rapid fire round with you. All
Yeah, let's do it.
right, awesome. What would be the number one way you would recommend that somebody improve their quality of life right now?
I would say get some exercise, and go for a walk outside, preferably in like a garden or in some greenery every day.
I love that. So exercise in the garden, love it. Number two, what is your favorite hobby or pastime?
I love reading and I love cooking.
And so that brings me to number three. What's your favorite thing to cook?
I'm from India, so I love cooking Indian food, but I love fermenting things too. So I would say anything that I need to like ferment, I love that.
Well, I'm not surprised since we talked at length about the microbiome and we didn't even touch the fermentation topic, but maybe we could do a second podcast on that. But again, thank you so much for coming on. And please feel free to share with our audience how they can reach you, learn more about you and your company, and get their hands on this phage product.
Yeah, so we are Phyla, Phyla, and you can find us at phylabiotics.com. There you'll find all the information you need about our science, about our clinicals, and about our products to help you make an informed choice. And we also have, we were on socials on Twitter, now X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, etc. And our handle is at Phylabiotics. We love to, do myth busting, educate people about acne, and yeah, hopefully you'll find all the information you need right there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'll share that all in the show notes, and I'm wishing you a great day ahead.
Thanks, Marina. This was great. Thank you for having me.
Bye.